So, good morning or good night, depending on where you are in the world, and welcome to another interview of the Shield Dude on a Couch. I'm your host, Hector, and today I'm joined by Jonathan LeVine, and he's the drummer for the band Cyclone Static. We just put out a new EP this Friday called K-Pop. So, we're here all to talk about it. So, Jonathan, how are you today?
I'm good, thanks.
Good. So a pretty interesting EP. I love the the album artwork. When you look at that artwork, you're like, yeah, you this is gonna be a fun record. And yeah, so let's talk a little bit about the tracks and obviously the band. So how would you describe the sound of Cyclone Static for people that do not know the band?
Yeah, I always just call us punk influenced rock. That's the easiest way because we sort of have this punk energy, but I don't know that I think of us as a punk band, but we're not, we're also very heavily rock influenced. So
Yeah,
that's,
I would say that that describes the music. So so you were working on this four song EP. Do you why did you decide to do an EP and not a full length at this time?
yeah, I guess basically because the music industry's changed so much in terms of how
Yeah.
people sort of consume music. And so, our first LP was 10 songs, and then we started working on this shortly after, but then COVID happened. And
Yeah.
so we didn't play for 3 years. And then once things kind of cleared up last year, we started playing again and we recorded this. And it we thought, well, let's just try 4 songs and see what that does, so you could just be more focused. And so the plan has been to just do 4 song EPs moving forward, because it doesn't seem like people really consume full albums so much anymore. They're just having music streamed, they're consuming it through streaming services. And so that was the thought, to try it like that.
Yeah, makes sense. And I've spoken to a lot of bands that are going this route that instead of like full length, like more EP route because of the same reasons. Especially like newer bands, more indie artists, that it's easier. And also, if you like, there's bands like put out EPs like every few months or something. It keeps like the name fresh in the
Yeah, that seems to the I mean, everyone now just follows like these sort of algorithms on all the different streaming services, and mostly people are looking at Spotify. But from what I understand, the more content you put out, the more fresh it keeps you. Um, and we're older, so like we grew up on, consuming vinyl, not streaming services and that sort of thing. So, we just kind of like playing around with it and seeing what works ultimately.
no,
And
yeah,
obviously, it's a lot easier to put together 4 songs or 6 songs versus 10 songs.
yeah. How long did it take for you guys to record these four songs?
Just 2 days.
Well,
Just
that's
2 days.
yeah. I'm assuming you already had they were written. You already had
Yeah,
everything
yeah. The way
down.
we
So
work is, I mean, everyone's different. I mean, obviously, like big, really successful bands will like create a whole album in the studio because they have big budget or whatever. We function fairly like traditionally. We write songs. We can write songs fairly quickly. Um, then we rehearse them. We play them for, I don't know, 3 months, I would say, and work out the kinks, see if there's anything we want to add or change. Again, a song will typically come together relatively quickly for us, but then sort of like iron out all the little bugs and create some kind of um, you know, give it texture and dynamics. That takes a little longer. And then we just go in and record it. Once we record, though, when we're in the studio, there'll be other things we'll add to it that we can't necessarily, some things that maybe don't come through completely live. Like on this, um, EP, one of the songs we have piano in it, the last song, which is
Okay now.
Okay Now. Yeah. So if you see us play live, we're not going to be having a piano playing this sort of part in the song. And maybe some of the vocals won't all be there. You know, there's a lot of overlapping vocals and things like that. So little things like that that you'll end up doing in the studio. But we don't like again, we approach it from pretty traditional. We want to go in there. You want it to be relatively stripped down. The focus is really like capturing the energy, and you need to be prepped before you go in, period. That's how we function. You know, again, you had all the money in the world, you could sit in the studio and just kind of goof off and create. But you know, that's not our situation.
Well, it's good that you have that old school mentality, because I was having a discussion with bands about, there's newer bands like modern metal bands that they can't do a concert if their laptop goes missing. It's something like that. And I don't know about you, but I think it's super fucking lame that you can't do a show because your laptop is missing.
Yeah, I'm
I
not
know.
interested in that. I'm not, I was having a conversation with some younger people recently who make music, and they all are creating music on their laptop and that sort of thing, which I think is cool. But learning how to like, I know some, professional drummers that will play with like Trigger. They'll have like kind of, it's like a pad that's kind of a computer that can, it's got stuff that they programmed into it. I don't really have an interest in that. I have a hard enough time just using my iPhone. Um, and I have to deal with, technology constantly. And for me, playing music is what I grew up on, up until I'm 55 in September. So up until like, in the 90s, playing in bands and stuff like that, you just played your instrument. It was a craft. And,
Yeah.
I still go down into my basement and I'm still trying to learn how to be a better drummer. And to focus on more things, I don't know if that's going to make the song better. And what I like, most music I like, doesn't rely on that. I'm looking for more the energy in the band, the groove, textures, so the technology aspect, don't get me wrong, there's bands that I like that use technology. I love old school hip hop, right? But for me, it loses some kind of organic energy that's really important to me in a song. It loses a sort of a soul to it. Some that could be, other people may really disagree with me saying that, but I don't need to make it more complicated than it already is. So,
No,
God bless people who want to make music that way, but that's not how I do it. That's not how
yeah,
we do
no, it's cool that they can use laptop to enhance the shows, but when you rely on that if you don't have that, you can't play, I don't know, it's kind of weird for me.
it. Yeah, it's like I know a bunch of bands that, pretty big bands that tour and that sort of thing that, you would know if I said their names. And I don't even play when we record, I don't play with a click track. For maybe a lot of people don't even know what a click track is. But to explain to the people who don't, you know what a click track is, right?
Yes, I know. Dave Grohl had to do that for Nevermind.
He played with a click track where you're hearing the time in the background.
Yeah.
And we actually did that with the first LP because our label was helping us record it and he wanted me to. So I did it, but I feel like it flattened everything out. So because a song doesn't necessarily have the same time going through at all times. It kind of has this
Mhm.
tension. And people didn't play the click tracks back in the 60s, 70s, 80s, probably even. I'm not sure when people started using click tracks, but I'm very well rehearsed. So, I go in ready. And so for me, it's really important. I discovered from that recording that LP was that it did flatten out the song. So,
So
to
you're more
speak
of
about,
like a field player uh, with your drumming.
absolutely. I don't really know that there would be any other way to play. Um, although I suppose there is. Um, if you're trying to like, it's always amazing to watch other drummers sort of mimic electronic music, which can be really difficult, say like drum and bass or something, which I think is really
Yeah.
cool, you know? Um, but I'm kind of a funk drummer, to be honest with you. Um, even though we don't play funk music, that's how I approach it. Well, it's all about that feel and being in the pocket and this groove and this sort of energy. And, I still listen to like a lot of like 60s soul and funk and 70s soul and funk and, 60s and 70s rock. And for me, that's still mostly the best music. And it's because of the feel, or 80s punk, a lot of 90s music. And it's because of that. So, I mean, we're trying to capture that in our music.
No, and it shows because this album, DCP, sorry, the tracks, even there's a punk thing to it, but there's a lot of like melodies in the songs
Yeah.
and pop sensibilities woven into the music. So I want to show the artwork because I like the artwork. It's kind of funny. So here's the artwork for the new EP, and it's dance songs for primitive people. So
That's right.
what would categorize as primitive people?
Well, this was a joke, kind of, and when we were making this, recording these songs, or just creating these songs, I kept feeling like it would have been music like cavemen would listen to, but like I kept getting this idea in my head. You ever watch the Flintstones?
Of course.
So like I was thinking it more like that, like these Flintstones like characters. I remember there's this one episode where like there's a band that looks like the Beatles, but they're like cavemen. Because I was thinking the music was sounding really primal, more so than our LP before. Not to say the music sounds a lot different, but it doesn't, but it's a different feel to it, I think. And at the time, I had been listening a lot to this band Idols. Do you know that band?
Yes, I've listened to that band. Yeah.
And their drummer is playing these really primal beats. Now he's, a trained drummer, like he went to music school, but he's making choices to play this sort of more simple um drum beats. And I kind of was hearing that a lot and really liking that. Even though like technically I can play probably more advanced sort of things, that doesn't really interest me when I'm playing for a song. So I was thinking like these songs were like that. And I had been thinking about that band a lot and listening to that band a lot. And I was like, oh, this sounds like caveman music. And then I was like thinking of, fortunately for me, the singer and songwriter James, who you're interviewing me instead of him because he's kind of shy, to be honest with you. So I end up doing these
That's
interviews.
that's funny that the lead singer is shy.
Yeah. So he's kind of shy, doesn't like to do these. So he's like, you do them. I'm like, fine, I'll do them. I don't care. But we really collaborate. And we're both, he is a creative director at Nickelodeon.
Oh,
And
cool.
yeah, and I'm an art dealer, and I sort of manage artists. So we're both in the creative field and we're producers, so to speak. So he lets me sort of handle the visual components and some other conceptual ideas with the band. So I was just thinking, what would be, you're another band you're another mediocre band. I shouldn't say that about us, putting out music out in the world. There's so much of it. And you're like, how do you capture people's attention? So I had this idea of like caveman pop music. That was
Hmm.
this idea. And then his kids were like, you should call it cave pop, like K-pop, like the Korean
Yeah, yeah,
pop
and
music.
that I see what you did there. Yeah.
So we're like, oh, that's funny. You're just trying to do something funny. And then I like these titles that are like it's like a subtitle. And like
Mhm.
use for example, like Steve Albini had that band Big Black, and they had a song title. It was like songs about fucking, or that was the title of it. Like
Yeah.
these sort of long titles that are you're kind of like, it's a very 90s thing. You're kind of like, oh, that's interesting. What is that? You just
Oh
want to
yeah.
catch people's attention.
I
So
remember like a band like White Zombie had those long ass
yeah,
like Sexorcisto, Devil Music too, and super long titles.
yeah. So I kind of enjoy that, I think it's funny, and it just, I don't know, contextualize it. And I kept thinking that the songs were, well, underneath it all, um, I have a tendency, because I like funk music, I play a lot of funk beats, although you wouldn't think that because we're not playing funk music. And so don't purposely I don't purposely try to do that, but it just kind of happens. And so sometimes the songs are a little dancey. So like I could feel like you could dance to them. So I was like, well, this would be dance music for cavemen. So that was
Yeah.
just my, silly idea. So it's just, that was the whole idea. And that was pretty much it.
Yeah.
Just something funny that makes people think and go like, oh, what's this? Oh yeah, maybe, I could hear
No,
that.
and it's funny that you have like the tapes on the cover, and you say featuring the hits. You already calling them hits. So yeah, I find that very very funny because you're doing it in a funny way and not in a pretentious way.
No, not at all. So I have a collaborator I work with, visual collaborator. His name's Orion Landau. He's one of my best friends, and he designed this album cover. And maybe we'll put it out as a physical LP at some point. But it's supposed to look like it's from the 70s, and it was like a record that was sitting in a bin. So it's got like, if you don't, I don't know if you noticed, but you can see the vinyl pressing through.
Oh yeah, you can totally see it. Yeah.
Yeah. So just to give a shout out to my friend Orion, he's a pretty famous designer. He used to be the creative director for Relapse Records. Do you know Relapse?
Oh, they only put they were the band. They put out Mastodon's Blood and
Yeah.
Thunder. Like that's a great record. So yeah, like for me, if a band was on Relapse, they were good. Like
Yes.
usually.
Yeah. So my friend Orion is creative director. My other really good friend, I'm name dropping here, is Matt Jacobson, who used to own it. Um, and so Orion, whenever I have something I'm putting out, I bug him to do something for me. So this was his idea. He was kind of like, I'll just do this. It looks like a metal cover almost a little bit. We're not a metal band, obviously.
No, no,
And
you're not a metal band at all.
it's just that the stupidness of it was what we were going for. It's silly, like what? The whole
What?
idea is like it's confusing people. And you know, we have a sense of humor. So it's like, you're just you're making your music, you're putting it out there, you're trying to contextualize it in some way. You hope that people like it. Um, Rock music is not necessarily, people don't consume it like they used to. Everyone's more into like hip hop and electronic music and pop music and like whatever. Um, so while you just do your thing and you have fun with it, right?
Of course. So I know that this was released digitally today, July 21st, but soon I know that you will have like it says here that you will have 400 mint records for a limited physical version to follow. So I'll put the link in the description for
Yeah,
people
we're
who
going to
want
be
to pre-order.
releasing a CD, just a
Oh,
CD.
cool.
And we will also, I mean, we know people don't buy CDs, but we put something out. In order to press vinyl, we're kind of waiting to put together more EPs, and then we'll
That would
probably,
make sense. Yeah.
yeah, and then we'll
Maybe
press.
put two EPs on one vinyl. Like
That's
one
right.
side is one EP and the other side
Yeah.
is the second
So,
EP.
it's again, you release music very differently than when we were growing up, where you put out a record or you put out a CD and you put out a full EP, a full LP. You didn't really release EPs so much. And if you did, maybe it was 6 songs as opposed to 4 songs, right? Or you'd put out a 7-inch, but it's become so expensive to press vinyl And if you don't have a big following, you know, people who collect vinyl are a very specific type of people. So, you know, we don't, you know, that's where we're at with this. You know, I guess eventually we will. We're just kind of waiting. That's all.
No, of course. So what's next for the band? Will you do some shows to promote this EP? Anything
Yeah.
planned?
Yeah, we have a record release on
On the
August.
10th of August, yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, we'll be playing in the fall, throughout the fall, the summer and the fall. We basically play predominantly in the tri-state area. We play in New York, New Jersey, Philadelphia, predominantly those areas. Asbury Park in New Jersey, Brooklyn, Manhattan. Yeah.
Awesome. And I see that there's a quote here that Davey Havoc from AFI digs your music. That's cool. I like AFI.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I'm friendly with Davey as well as Jeff Rickley, who are both kind enough to give me quotes for my band. They really were actually quite supportive. I know them both because I used to sell artwork to them, or you know, I had this gallery in New York City for 12 years. I had a gallery for 18 years, and that's still what I do for a living. So through that, I've met a lot of practice, you know, like sort of well-known musicians and such that became my friends. And as a matter of fact, Jeff Rickley of Thursday was really instrumental in helping us produce our first LP, and he set us up with Stuart. Oh, geez, I'm Stu Richardson, who mixed both the EP and the LP. And Stu plays in Thursday, but he also used to be in the band Lost Prophets, and he's in No Devotion as well. So he really made this sound really amazing, in my opinion. He's a really great person to work with.
No, cool. And like I said, the album is fun. You know, there's 4 tracks. Which one is your favorite? I know it's
That's
hard to
hard.
pick, but
That's
yeah.
hard. It's really hard because I really like them all, but I kind of like, and I don't think it's the one that's going to be everybody else's favorite. Everyone seems to like Boom Boom, the first one. Um, but I like the last song, Okay Now.
That's my favorite, and I think it's because it's more deeper. Uh, like that's the deepest song. Lyrically, I haven't analyzed what it's about, but I'm thinking it has to deal with everything that has happened and being okay now in the present after all the shit that we've gone through
Yeah, I think that,
the
you
last year.
know, James doesn't really like to talk about his lyrics. Um, he doesn't like to be like, this is what it's specifically about. So when we have to do interviews and things, I have to really pester him. I have to call him and have a conversation with him and bug him, bust his chops. Um, but yeah, I think the reason I like that song is because that's the most dancey of the songs, actually. And what happens when I just had like an interesting dynamic in it, and I have a really good fun. It's really fun to play that beat, which is sort of like it's like a James Brown kind of beat. And I mean, truthfully, through all the songs, I love all the we have, you know, both James and John sing, and they do like these really nice vocals and melodies and choruses together. And that song has a really nice dynamic where it gets quiet and loud, quiet and loud. But when we were recording it, we started to make it, I was like, oh, this sort of sounds like a Britpop song, like a band from the 90s, like
Like Blur,
not so much like Blur, more like what's that band? I'm so bad.
Oasis. No,
You
I
know,
don't
like,
think
oh,
it's.
it could be like Oasis, like maybe like that one song, maybe, or there's like some of these Britpop bands that would put like dance beats.
Oh yeah, I think you're talking about the first album. Like maybe I
Yeah,
don't really want to
exactly,
know. Yeah.
exactly. Something like that. You know, and there's also like this sort of Beatles bass line that John plays. And so when we were recording it and they isolated the tracks and it was just the bass and the drums, I was like, oh, that's the drum beat from the song Apache by the Sugar Hill Gang. I don't know if
Mm.
you know who they are, right? It's like
No,
this,
no, yeah, of course.
and I was
One of the
like,
first hip
oh,
hop bands.
what's that?
That
Yeah,
was one of the first hip hop bands.
and it was like this b-boy, and I used to be a b-boy, so like I used to break dance and stuff, and so I was like, oh, that sounds like that. And so I just really like that I was able to play that in the song, and the song has all this texture and it builds and grows, and it's a long song, but it doesn't feel that way to me. So it's just sort of different, it's not like, I mean, I think the whole, as far as, yeah, I still think the way it was mixed and we played it is still very like explosive, and heavy in a way.
But danceable as well.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah,
That's
and
dance music for primitive people.
yeah, and I like growing up in the 90s, every like there was alternative, there was metal, and dance music was really popular in the 90s, especially
Yeah,
that European style of dance music. It was super popular, and electronic music. So yes, I would recommend this EP to anyone who likes punk, but punk that you can dance to. So like the Clash. To me, the Clash has like that danceable, like Rock the
yeah.
Casbah. Come on, like you can dance to that. Uh,
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bands actually that you can dance to their music and that are rock bands, and people do. And you're looking for it to like, you want it to swing, right?
yeah,
So like, the Beatles, like Ringo Starr, everyone like is like, oh, Ringo Starr, I can't, they always disrespect Ringo Starr, but Ringo Starr is a great drummer and he has a great feeling. Everything he did, it would swing, and so I think about him a lot when I play. And I also think a lot about John Bonham, because John Bonham was essentially a funk drummer underneath all that. And he sort of pulls back, and he actually listened to a lot of funk drummers. So he's doing a lot of that too. That's why a lot of hip hop bands sampled his beats, um, like the Beastie Boys or whatever, because
yeah,
that was underneath there. So, you're kind of looking for that sort of, a lot of classic rock bands like Cheap Trick. They had this sort of thing that you could, or the Clash, or, so many bands, the Jam, like sort of had this, you could dance to the music, even though it was rock music. So,
yeah. Dancing is not a crime.
no, I love dancing. I
Yeah,
love to dance. So,
yeah. So, Jonathan, I want to thank you for taking some time of your day uh, to talk to me about the EP. It's been fun. It's a cool EP and it's fun. Like we need fun music. Not everything
yeah,
can be so serious
that's
all the
right.
time. So it's a fun EP. Like if you like punk and if you like punk with some dance beats to it, you will enjoy this. So I will put the link for people because it's already out now. You can stream it or
That's
you
right.
can pre-order it. And you heard it here. There's more EPs coming. I don't know if this year, maybe next year, right?
Probably next year.
Next year. So be on the lookout for more music from Cyclone Static. So people, until next time, this is Hector, the Shield Dude on a couch, and I'll see you all right here on the couch. Thank you and good night.